or for any reason. And your premium will be $6.95 a month and will never increase. Colonial Penn Life Insurance Company wants to send you the important information in this envelope, and it's free. So if you're age 50 to 80 and thought it would be difficult to buy life insurance, shouldn't you call now? Here's the number.
For free information in the mail, call 800-257-1257. This is a free call, 800-257-1257.
Amid the chaos that is Lebanon, more than 24 foreigners remain hostage, including 8 Americans. One of Lebanon's militia chieftains claims to be working on a deal that would involve a 3-way trade to free 4 of the hostages. But a major player in any such deal would be Israel. And Israeli leaders say they do not negotiate for hostages their own or anyone else's.
If our lives are important to America, they must order Israel to release the 400 Palestinians as soon as possible, that is, Monday as a maximum.
Alan Steen and the other 3 kidnapped Beirut University college professors began the week under a death threat with a declared deadline of midnight Monday. But during the day, the kidnappers extended their deadline indefinitely.
A letter from Islamic Jihad for the liberation of Palestine announced the postponement until further notice of the execution of their 4 hostages, including 3 Americans. The execution deadline was postponed hours after emotional appeals from the hostages' wives.
Please, please spare the lives of our husbands. We always pray for you all. Take care. We will soon be together. You must know we are urging everyone throughout the world, our governments and the governments of the world, to open peaceful humanitarian dialogue. They are acting now to save you.
The fate of the 4, all university lecturers, now appears tied to decisions in Israel, Lebanon, and the United States. The kidnappers want 400 Arab prisoners held by Israel freed. Their letter demands clarification of what are termed positive points made by Israel about the prisoners. The Israelis indicate they might consider swapping the prisoners for an Israeli pilot held by this man, Nabi Berri, head of the Lebanese Shiite Amal organization. Berri says the 4 university professors seized January 24th must first be released, then he will pursue a swap of an Israeli pilot held by Amal for the 400 prisoners.
If the Islamic Jihad accept my project, I am ready to give this project to the Red Cross or to any country who is a friend to us, and they can talk with the Israelis.
The kidnappers have spared the hostages' lives for the moment, but only by attempting to increase pressure on Israel to open contacts to meet their demands.
Israel has yet to receive a list of 400 Lebanese and Palestinians whose release is demanded by Muslim Shiite extremists. Prime Minister Yitzhak Shamir says Israel would consider a direct request for negotiations.
We have to see what is going on. We have to see the seriousness of all that. And then we will consider and decide.
Lebanese radio reports say Israel and the Islamic Jihad for the liberation of Palestine are already engaged in secret talks. The Israelis say they've received no U.S. requests to make a deal for the American hostages.
From what I know, no government intends to submit to terrorism or ultimatums.
Unpopular though it was in the past, there is a way out. Israel could deal for the release of one of its airmen held prisoner of war by Nabi Berri's moderate Amal militia. That wouldn't be bargaining for hostages, but if it happened to result in their release, as Berri suggests, so much the better.
It was good sign because they don't say no. They don't say yes in the same time. But when they say something like that, of course, if they want something by other way, I am ready. If the Munazzamat Jihad al-Islami accepts, I am ready to give that to the Red Cross or to any country who is a friend to us.
Nabi Berri, head of Amal, says he's preparing the list of prisoners for a swap.
But in the same time, I ask my people, I ask Amal people, to try to prepare a list for the Lebanese. And Palestinian, they are in Atlit or in Khiyam. We have a Israeli pilot. If the Islamic Jihad, they release the 4 professors from the BUC, I am ready to exchange this pilot with the Palestinian and the Lebanese. They are captured in Israel.
Publicly, Berri insists the process cannot move forward unless the hostages are released.
Otherwise, if the Israelis, they will release the 400 Palestinians, they will release them for who? For the pilot or for the 4 person? I have to know.
Berri says he has information, but she would not elaborate, that Anglican envoy Terry Waite, who disappeared in Beirut January 20th while trying to gain the freedom of American hostages, will himself be freed by those now holding him.
I repeat that I am optimistic about this man despite everything. That he will be released soon. Soon doesn't mean in 24 hours or 48 hours like what they said. I don't say that. I said by days, by weeks, but not by months.
Berri's contacts with the kidnappers in Beirut are uncertain. His credibility with the Israelis is shaky. But for the moment, he is presenting himself as a possible key to unraveling the hostage tragedy without bloodshed.
Foreign Minister Peres toured Haifa Port Tuesday, where elements of the U.S. 6th Fleet lay at anchor. It was America's show of force off the Lebanese coast, he said, that convinced the kidnappers to keep the hostages alive. Military action could be used to win the hostages freedom. Syria, upon whom the Shiites depend, would be the target.
I would suggest a naval blockade of the Lebanese and Syrian coast.
A blockade, says Bailey, would also create tremendous pressure on the extreme Shiites from other Lebanese factions. But so far, there's no sign either the U.S. or Israel is moving in that direction.
The only thing I can say is we continue to have, on a daily basis, very close consultations about all aspects of what's going on in the region.
It's not at all clear what Israel and the United States are planning behind the scenes. At this moment, Israel's tactic seems to be to keep the Islamic Jihad off balance while it plays for time.
U.S. officials confirm American Ambassador Thomas Pickering has been talking with Israeli officials about the hostage situation in Lebanon, but the State Department insists it is not negotiating.
We're not talking with Israel about any deal, and we don't intend to do so.
The U.S. claims it is now adhering to its policy of refusing to give in to terrorists.
You know what our policy is on no concessions.
But the current U.S. claims ring hollow in the wake of President Reagan's arms for hostages dealings.
We know very well, that happened not only in the United States, it happened in Europe, it happened with Israel, so everybody is negotiating directly or indirectly and making hostage-taking a profitable situation.
During the TWA hijacking in Lebanon in 1985, the hijackers demanded the release of hundreds of Palestinian prisoners then held by Israel. President Reagan then, too, insisted the U.S. neither asked nor encouraged Israel to cooperate. But the U.S. did convey to Lebanese intermediary Nabi Berri and through him to Syrian President Hafez Assad Israel's pledge to resume releasing the prisoners after the hijacking ended. Hundreds of prisoners were freed following the hijacking, though to this day, U.S. and Israeli officials insist that had been Israel's plan even before the hijacking.
American officials trying to uphold the principle of no concessions despite the shadow of the Iran arms deal are bending over backwards to avoid any appearance of negotiating now. So if Israel swaps prisoners for hostages now, the U.S. will be able to say the terrorists gave in without getting any promises from Washington.
But if the Islamic Jihad release those people, I am ready to finish all the case in 10 days, less than 10 days.
Nothing concrete has been said, nothing has been done with this, no approaches were made to Israel.
Throughout the 20th century, one industry has been responsible for helping develop countless plant safety procedures.
Procedures that make the American factory a safe, secure, relaxed place to work. Who is that industry? You're going to be surprised. Your insurance company. We do a lot more than sell insurance.
I'm Teddy Ruxpin.
Well, guys, what do you think?
I think he's great.
AT&T is in business video, the fast, easy way to get together.
Claire, as you take a look at this next chart,
When you can't be together, from your offices or selected hotels to locations worldwide.
Mais certainement. Just...
All right, everybody. Are we all set in Chicago? Okay, let's start our meeting. Now, about...
Just call AT&T and ask for business video. AT&T, the right choice.
Where will you be when your laxative starts working? Where will you be? With Fleet brand glycerin suppositories, there's no worry. Fleet works when you want it to, in minutes. For fast, predictable relief, trust Fleet. It's predictable.
Now, brilliant nail colors for today's new fashions. Lead press-on nails in 18 deep, rich, dimensional colors. Cotton candy.
Simple.
Open mist.
Mysterious.
Lead press-on nails. 18 great nail colors you just press on with undreamed-of ease. Desert Moon.
Lovely.
Fiesta.
Lively.
Sugar Plum.
Emotion.
40 lead adhesive tabs and 20 lead press-on nails for a perfect fit. Lead press-on nails. 18 sensational fashion colors. Press on.
Wrap up the week's top business stories with Lou Dobbs. He'll help make sense out of the dollar, so you can make dollars out of cents. From the world of business to the consumer, when it comes to money matters that affect you, watch Money Week. This morning at 9:30 Eastern on CNN.
Nabi Berri, head of the Lebanese Shiite Amal organization, has opened unofficial contacts with the Red Cross to draft a list of Israeli-held prisoners for a swap of an Israeli airman, Amal holds, aimed at freeing 4 university lecturers held hostage in Beirut.
I ask my people, Amal, now to contact the Red Cross, to contact their parent, to contact the village in the south, to arrive to a precise list.
Islamic Jihad for the liberation of Palestine, which holds the 4 hostages, including 3 Americans, demands the release of 400 prisoners as their price to free the hostages.
But if the Islamic Jihad release those people, I am ready to finish all the case in 10 days, less than 10 days.
Since proposing the swap, Berri has insisted he cannot act until after Islamic Jihad actually releases its 4 hostages. Now, he's asking for an indication from the kidnappers that they accept his idea.
I'm thinking about calling the Red Cross when I see any positive sign for releasing the 4 professors.
The Amal leader expressed some interest in a broader deal to secure the release of all American hostages in Lebanon in return for Israeli prisoners and Lebanese Jews held there, but he said he has not been involved in such an arrangement.
I don't have any package deal with the others, but doesn't mean I'm against that package deal.
While Berri remains optimistic that Anglican envoy Terry Waite, who disappeared in Beirut January 20th while trying to free American hostages, will be released, he sees no linkage between him and the 4 captive university professors.
Until now, I think the problem of Terry Waite, it is separate from the problem of the 4 person.
Israel refuses to deal with hostage takers, and so far the United States has not asked Israel to do so.
Nothing concrete has been said, nothing has been done with this, no approaches were made to Israel. And the last time, was that such an approach was made, it was made by the terrorists, not to Israel, but to the United States, and they said, get Israel to release prisoners. I must tell you that not only did we not hear anything from Mr. Berri, but we didn't hear anything from the United States at all suggesting that we should capitulate. Quite the contrary. The United States wants to reassert a policy of firmness, and Israel wants to do the same.
In 1985, Israel released more than 1,000 convicted Palestinian terrorists in return for 3 soldiers. The deal was politically unpopular. The families of Israeli terror victims gathered outside the Supreme Court, which considered their request for an injunction banning the government from releasing Arab prisoners in return for hostages held in Lebanon.
We made some good step for the state of Israel and for the free world.
In demonstrations Wednesday, bereaved families broke into the courtroom, then continued their protest outside the United States consulate. Painful as past prisoner releases have been for the Israeli public, there are those who would support another one in order to obtain their loved one's freedom. Among them is the father of Zachary Baumel, an Israeli soldier missing since the first week of the Lebanon War in 1982.
It's a very painful process, and I know there are many pros and cons, but these people who have suffered losses already and therefore are opposed to it should also take into account the living. And the Jewish religion places the greatest emphasis on the living.
Israeli army tradition includes an unqualified commitment to rescue soldiers left on the battlefield.
Soldiers and only soldiers, that's it.
What about hostages? What's the difference?
We haven't got no hostages. The difference is that the soldiers were sent out on a mission, and we are committed to get them back home. That's the difference. And that makes made a whole difference.
In an affidavit submitted to the Supreme Court, the government said reports of a deal to release Arab prisoners in return for U.S. and other hostages were completely baseless.
Right now it's more an exercise in the media than anything real on the grounds.
A deal with extremist Lebanese Shiites seems highly unlikely.
We're just dealing with people with whom communication, as far as we can see, is impossible.
But the government has not ruled out releasing Arab prisoners in exchange for the 7 Israeli prisoners of war believed held in Lebanon. Israel has made such deals in the past and, despite the political fallout at home and abroad, might do so again.
The distinctions between prisoner of war and hostage, between Shiite fighter and Palestinian terrorist, are clear to most Israelis. Jerusalem policymakers are extremely concerned that Americans may not understand if they strike a deal for the release of their missing airmen, while the hostages remain in captivity.
There is another, far larger group of people being held hostage in Lebanon, the more than 30,000 Palestinians in Beirut's Burj al-Barajneh refugee camp. The camp has been under siege by fighters of Nabi Berri's Amal militia for more than 3 months.
For the Palestinian refugees living in Beirut's Burj al-Barajneh camp, there's a new enemy: hunger. The camp is under siege by Shiite Amal militiamen who are refusing to let vitally needed supplies through. For the second day running, UN supply trucks carrying water and food have been prevented from entering the camp. Amal leader Nabi Berri says the siege will be lifted when Palestinian guerrillas withdraw from positions they've taken in southern Lebanon. Only a short distance from the camp, tons of food urgently needed by the refugees sit in warehouses gathering dust. In desperation, the Palestinians are reported to be eating whatever they can find. Refugees from other Palestinian camps in Beirut have been staging demonstrations to draw attention to the plight of their countrymen. But the issue is bigger than just food. Amal are trying to prevent the Palestinians from regaining a power base in Lebanon. For this Palestinian family, freedom was sweet. They ignored the warnings of their leaders inside the Burj al-Barajneh camp and made their bid to escape. Instead of the hostile reception they'd been warned to expect, Amal militiamen greeted them with open arms and food, and later even gave them an escort. While they're not the first to escape through Amal lines, earlier reports speak of up to 40 children also making the journey. The mother was the first adult to give an eyewitness account of conditions inside. She confirmed reports that people have been reduced to eating cats, dogs, and even rats, and spoke of widespread disease. Back at the Burj al-Barajneh camp in Beirut, there have been reports of more fighting, with snipers taking up positions as UN workers wait.
As you can see that we're on standing by basis, waiting to enter the camps anytime we have the green light, to enter with the commodities of food and medicines to the refugees who are badly in need now.
On Friday, Amal and Palestinian leaders reached agreement on terms for an emergency food convoy into the besieged camp. But the food convoy was ambushed at the camp gates. The UN drivers abandoned their shot-up food trucks, and an Iranian diplomat accompanying the convoy was reported killed in the gunfire. Amal leaders accuse Palestinians of opening fire. Palestinians blame the Amal, and still the people of Burj al-Barajni go hungry.
In 1894, a three-man research agency was created to test electrical wiring. In the decades that followed, it tested and set safety standards for products the world over. Its name, Underwriters Laboratories. Who created Underwriters Laboratories? You're going to be surprised. Your insurance company. We do a lot more than sell insurance.
No diet in the world will help you lose weight until you do one thing: control your appetite.
I get results from Dexatrim without making sacrifices. I'm not hungry, and I lose weight.
Dexatrim. You can't buy a stronger appetite control formula without a prescription. Just one capsule works all day to help you lose weight.
You don't even think about eating, so the weight comes off.
Extra strength Dexatrim. No diet capsule works harder to help you lose weight.
Why you should eat new, thicker, creamier Yoplait, the yogurt of France.
You know, eating this new Yoplait gives you this sense of Frenchness, this sense of goodness and wholesomeness, this universal sense of a higher yogurt consciousness. Anyway, I think it tastes a lot better than the other yogurts.
New, thicker, creamier Yoplait. Taste how good yogurt can be.
You should try it, because I said so.
She is the mystery.
I don't care where you come from. Alaska will get you.
Alaska is the story that my father told of swift rivers running with salmon and gold. Alaska is so many things I have never known. Alaska is the warming sun calling me home. Alaska.
At week's end, there was no public indication that Nabi Berri was making much progress toward implementing his proposed prisoners and hostages swap. For the United States, it appears that once again, the feasible options in Lebanon are few.
U.S. officials believe there are at least two distinct groups of terrorists in Lebanon holding American hostages. One group, Shiite Muslims, believed to be holding 5 Americans, including Terry Anderson and Thomas Sutherland, is the one with whom Anglican envoy Terry Waite is believed to be negotiating. The other group, made up of Palestinians, not Shiites, is the one which recently kidnapped 3 Americans and an Indian who is a U.S. resident. Secretary of State Schultz told an American Legion audience that terrorists are animals and said, things that we do that tend to dramatize the importance of the hostages to us tend to elevate the value of the hostages to those who hold them, and that's not in the hostages' interest, and it's not in our interest. Counterterrorism experts in Washington believe both groups of kidnappers have strong ties to the Islamic fundamentalist government of Iran.
The game is really controlled in Lebanon by 2 governments, and these are Iran and Syria. Syria controls one faction of the Lebanese and terrorists who hold the Western, including American hostages. Iran controls the other group, and we have to realize that this game that is being unraveling here, that is being played out, is really not a game with individual people, individual leaders, or even individual terrorist groups, but really a game that the 2 regimes are playing with the West, with the United States, with Israel, and with all of the Western countries.
But U.S. officials are not sure if the 2 groups of kidnappers are working together. The Shiites, members of a group known as Hezbollah, have been demanding freedom for relatives who were jailed in Kuwait following a series of bombings in 1983. The Palestinians are thought to be renegade members of the PLO, who oppose Yasser Arafat and are tied to Syria. They are demanding freedom for Palestinian prisoners being held in Israel. Historically, the Shiites and Palestinians despise one another, but as one State Department official puts it, war makes strange bedfellows. With American warships steaming off the Lebanese coast, some U.S. officials believe the Shiites and Palestinians may be cooperating to anger President Reagan into shelling sections of Lebanon. Such action, these officials argue, would turn even friendly Lebanese against the U.S. That's been the goal of Islamic fundamentalists since the early 1980s, when the American embassy in Beirut and its Marine barracks nearby were bombed, killing hundreds.
There is no military option short of absolute certitude of where these hostages are being held, and even then, the military situation that would evolve on the ground would likely create collateral damage, death to civilians, and probably death to hostages in an effort to take them out. Now that is not certain. It depends on the situation, but it does indicate to you that even under the most favorable circumstances of really first-class intelligence, it would still be a very dubious military operation.
Some U.S. officials, now arguing against military action, say threats against the hostages should not be allowed to drive Washington into a military strike. Says one official, "We are taking our hostages too seriously if we take military action."
They are acting now to save you.
Deal or no deal? The big story this week. This is Don Miller, CNN.
This is CNN, the world's most important network.
For everybody who loves waltzes, here is the famous orchestra whose waltz records became giant hits all over America. Their beautiful waltzes like this helped sell over 100 million records. And now, here are the waltz favorites of the beloved Guy Lombardo Orchestra. Was the most requested of all the Guy Lombardo songs. The smooth and mellow sound of Guy Lombardo's waltzes has never been equaled. All these waltz favorites are in this album, but you also get another entire album of Guy Lombardo waltz favorites. Waltzes so beautiful, you'll play them over and over again. How you love this treasury of Guy Lombardo waltz favorites. But remember, you also get album number 1. You get them both in this limited offer. Be sure to order now.
To save COD fees, have your credit